soft. I can't get the fucking thing out. And I've been moving it about 8 inches. Every fucking day.
Kilometers an hour, up to 100 kilometers an hour. Go on, you good thing. 120 kilometers an hour, 130, 140, 150. Go on! 160, go on! Kilometers an hour, 130, 140. Go on! Go on, get up! 160, go on! 160, 100 miles an hour!
First look at the United States after coming down through Canada. I'm officially in Montana, and that way is Glacier National Park. And this border here, this is Highway 17 here, which connects down to Highway 89, which runs down to Glacier National Park, and that's it, kind of off in that direction. This is a kind of a scenic highway to cross the border. The busier crossing is at Lethbridge, just south of Lethbridge. And one thing I've learned through, I feel like hundreds of borders at this stage, is always pick the quieter border to go through. You're just going to have less hassle. Made it to Montana. I came through Glacier National Park. Glacier National Park is an amazing place, and most people who come down, they take the road to the Sun Highway, which is what I did. If you ever find yourself in Glacier National Park, it's just on the border between Canada and the United States, just near in Montana. The Two Sisters Cafe, this place is amazing. I wholeheartedly recommend the red burger and some huckleberry pie and huckleberry ice cream. Not something you can get back home in Ireland, but worth the trip. After leaving the Icefield Parkway, you'd say to yourself, okay, well, I'm never ever going to see anything that will ever top that again. And lo and behold, there you are in the park, in this park, and it's just incredible. The main road, as you're going up over the Logan Pass, it's called the Road to the Sun Highway. It's a fantastic, I mean, it's a real narrow road which traverses the mountain, but it's really, really narrow and you can see right over the edge. And the whole thing was packed full of bikers, absolutely packed full of bikers. Had an amazing time coming over. So this is the sort of thing that draws thousands and thousands of people to the great northwest of North America every single year. Crystal clear lakes, incredible mountains, unbelievable stillness, and an incredibly untouched landscape. If you're living in a city or if you're living in a densely populated country, this is the ultimate get away from it all location. Here there's no telephone signal, there's no Blackberries, no Facebook, no anything. You can't connect to anything. If you want to come here to do some thinking or get away from it all or just relax your brain, this is the place to come to. I just wish I had a kayak, and I was kayaking out there. Well, it's a long way from Ireland, it's a long way from Mongolia, it's a long way from Far Eastern Russia. There's places up in Far Eastern Russia near Magadan which are like this, you know, has the lakes, mountains, never-ending forest. It's amazing how parts of it feel like you could just fold over. Like Far Eastern Russia is almost identical to Alaska. That whole area, the only difference is in the United States of America you can get anything you want anytime. In Russia you can get fuck all. This is the Road to the Sun Highway in Glacier National Park in northern Montana, but they're constantly doing repairs on the road where they shut down one lane. So what they end up doing is they'll put a signal guard on and he'll stop it for 20 minutes, they'll work a bit and they'll stop the other side, but they keep one lane going. But what actually ends up happening is that you have processions of maybe 100 vehicles following each other on the road, and then a massive gap. So the key to enjoying this road is to just get out of the traffic, pull off, let it pass, and then jump back on when it's all gone. Because after this 100 cars have gone, which were just held up by that signal man, there's about a 20-minute gap before you see the next car. And in that 20 minutes, you're car free. You can ride the bike, you don't have to be worried about somebody coming and lashing up your arse in an RV. What a fantastic location. It's almost shooting yourself in the image feels like bragging. You live your whole life and see something like that. And you're driving along, you know, for an hour or two and you're just having the most amazing time. And then you feel that kind of sense of sadness that maybe you'll never see something like that again. Like who knows what happens next. You meet a girl, you settle down, you get married, you have kids, you write off about 18 years of your life where you don't get to do and see all this sort of stuff. You'd be going on holidays for 2 weeks in Spain and making sure it's a kiddie hotel. And I know there's enjoyment that comes from that too, but you know, and I suppose you can't strap a baby car to a motorbike. Not that I've seen anyway. The United States of America has probably the world's most awesome road network. If you look at any 2 points on a map, invariably there's going to be 3 or 4 different ways to get there. It is an absolutely incredible country from an infrastructure perspective. Having said all that, what you want to try and do or avoid when you're on a motorcycle trip is stay off the interstates, because they were really just made to get you the quickest possible way between 2 cities or 2 towns. They're meant for you to travel quickly. And on a motorcycle journey, the last thing you really want to do is travel quickly. You actually want to travel pretty slowly, because there's an often used quote about motorcycle traveling that the journey is the destination. It's not necessarily about getting from A to B. It's about everything that happens between A and B. So if you find yourself on a motorway or an interstate as they call them in the United States, all you're going to do is get there quick, and in the blink of an eye the trip will be over. You will never ever create a single memory on an interstate. But if you get off on one of the highways
that's where the real America is. That's where small town America is, and that's where you're most likely to meet the sort of people you're going to create bonds with and friendships that are going to last a lifetime. You'll never meet anybody in an interstate because everybody who's on it, they're going someplace else. But if you're from Europe and you're travelling across America, you'll learn nothing about America on an interstate. The route that I'm going to show you here that I took through the United States is actually an amalgam of 3 different motorcycle trips that I took. The first one, about 3 years ago, was in Alaska to Ushuaia. The second trip was at Calgary to Rio Gallegos in Argentina. And then the third trip was obviously Dublin to New York. But what I ended up doing was crisscrossing around this part of the world multiple times and going to the same location multiple times. Like, for instance, the Bonneville Salt Flats I visited on every journey. I actually ended up going back there 4 times. So it didn't make sense to go back and show you it in 4 different video streams. So what I actually did is just amalgamated all the video that I took in that location into one video. So if it looks like I'm getting older and younger or fatter and slimmer between the videos, well, that's because I am. So on days like today, I was just driving along and I was, you're cooking it. My throat is real dry here now from it. But imagine you're just absolutely roasting, boiling, and I'm still a fair amount of time away from anywhere. But you're able to just come across a river, drop the tweeds, and just hang your balls in the river. You wouldn't be long cooling down. As you can see, this is one of these mega trains. In behind this train there's another train that's moving. I was going to try and jump across the tracks, but I decided against it. But this is one of many mega hubs in the United States for trains. And if you think about countries the size of the States and Canada, and anywhere where the land is particularly flat, look at the shadow there, look. So you get this thing in 3D. Do you see it? Maybe I should point it like that so you can't see it. But anywhere where land is particularly flat and you don't have to drag these carriages up mountains, it makes sense to have these mile-long trains. So Nevada, Utah, well, parts of Utah, Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming, the whole way across to the East Coast. Once you're at this side of the Rockies, all these trains start to make sense. Obviously, trying to lug, a 500 carriage train over the Rockies does not make sense, even though there are some there. And, being from Ireland, where the average train may be 15 carriages long, I don't know what size they are in whatever country you're from, but I love the look of them. I love actually getting stopped at a crossroads and having to wait 15 minutes for the train to go by. I absolutely love it. It's an amazing thing. I love the scale of it. I love thinking about, some of the things that start to come into your mind on a day where, I've just basically get the hammer down because the bike is struggling. I haven't been able to get off and do any filming at all. I've literally put it in 6th gear and drove petrol station to petrol station because the clutch is starting to fail on the bike. But I was pretty miserable earlier just because everything was starting to peter. But anyway, I arrived at this town and you see these massive trains and hundreds of trucks parked up, and obviously the trucks are parking up to collect or deliver to the hub. They're collecting a lot of this stuff and loading them up on trailers and all that sort of stuff. So it feels really, it's magic, and it reminds me of Russia, because Russia is serviced by the Trans-Siberian Highway, the Trans-Siberian Railway and the Trans-Siberian Highway. So no matter where you look there, you have trains and trucks coexisting. And being here in America now and seeing it's food for the soul, actually, because I was starting to kind of, it was almost like it was everything about the trip was, getting to Magadan and if it struggled if I could make sense of everything and all. And then all of a sudden as you're driving along, seeing trains, roads and rivers linked up the exact same way as I first noticed them when I was in the Ukraine. And then as I was going through Russia, the whole thing, then you start to get this real grin on your face, that life suddenly makes sense all over again, Just got to the Blackfeet Nation. I'm close to the border, very close to the border between Canada and the United States here. Most of the Indian reservations are really, really poor actually. I mean, the only thing that seems to earn them any money at all is the casinos. When you drive through them, I mean, I suppose what happened was the Indians, when they were, you know, after 1876, whenever they got their asses handed to them and they all got pushed onto reservations. The reason they were pushed onto the reservations was because it was shite land. You couldn't do anything with it. Alcohol and everything else. It's been problem after problem since. But Chris Rock put it brilliantly when he said that, you know, even coming from an African American's perspective, you know, the whole slave history and everything like that, he just turned around and said that nobody or no thing has ever had as hard a time as the Native American Indian. And the more I read about it, the more I know that to be true. Honestly, imagine 200 years ago having a pony waiting around the horse over the plains. That's kind of like what riding a bike is today, in my opinion. I've always felt that riding a motorcycle across America is the modern day equivalent of riding a horse across America. Obviously, that takes months and years even when they did it, but it's the modern day equivalent because you're out in the elements. It's hard going. The elements are in your face. You've got a big red burnt face and you're getting soaked by the rain and all that sort of stuff. There's no air conditioning on the bike. The only way you can get the air conditioning is to go a bit faster. So these are the plains that happened. And I don't know about you, but I can actually almost imagine, you know, hundreds of Indians riding in over these plains on horseback. It's really, I think they did a really good job actually maintaining it and everything. It really feels it's untouched and all that sort of stuff. But just over here, can you imagine you came over this hill and just there was about 200 or 300 Indians, or even 1,000 Indians, whatever it might be, all on horseback, all making a beeline for you. They'll probably take one look at this rug and say, well, we're not scalping that fella, it's a waste of a knife. I was in Normandy and Vimy in France, and I saw similar kind of layouts of graves like this. I don't know why it is, but I always seem to end up there on a sunny day. But if you were going to get laid out and you were going to die, what better place would you like to be buried than on a Montana plain, just like this here? So one of the things you learn when you come here is that he's not actually buried here. This is just a landmark where he fell. There is 220 people buried up on the mound over my shoulder there. You can see it there. But none of the officers, they were all moved to Arlington. Chap just told me there that the only Union survivor of this battle of the Little Bighorn, was a Union horse, a 7th Cavalry horse called Comanche. And apparently he lived to 28 years old, which is a very ripe age, back in 1876. I was just thinking about it, 1876 isn't that long ago. You kind of tend to think that these things happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but 1876 is like, yeah, it was only 100 and something years ago. It's hard to believe that just back then you had Indians roaming, playing with thousands of buffalo as well. It's mad. This is the Indian Memorial at the Little Bighorn site. It's kind of peaceful actually. You can see I suppose the main centrepiece is this Ireland work here. On the way in there's some Indian graves, and it has or Indian headstones anyway, and on top of them it has money and a feather, and I'm not sure what the significance of all that is, but all these plaques describe the various tribes that are there. So there's people walking in and out. This is the thing I was telling you, is that, you know, you're holding up a camera and then somebody walks in and you're standing here talking to a camera like a gobshite going, yeah, just act natural. So anyway, you can see the Sioux, there's the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, and the Crow. And here, Yarracara, and a bunch of other names I can't really pronounce, to be honest. I need to be careful walking here because one of the signs turns around and it warns you about rattlesnakes. That'd be an interesting thing. So what was the delay in like getting through North America? Oh, got stung by a rattlesnake, didn't I? Americans are drawn, and actually Europeans too, actually. All of us are, because if you grew up watching cowboy and Indian movies, you had to have at least seen 3 or 4 General Custer movies. And, you know, cowboys and Indians and shoot moots and all this sort of stuff, and Sioux and Crow and Comanche and all this sort of stuff. And all those, they're all bywords in your head. You know the names as well as you know the names of your brothers and sisters. The only thing is, like I said earlier, the thing you can really get a feel for is you can imagine, a charge, a cavalry charge happening over here, and you can imagine Indians coming in over the hill on horseback and all that sort of stuff all around the place. It's exactly how memorials should be done. They shouldn't impact the area that they're in. They should maintain it and do no more. Don't let it get any worse. Don't let it get any better. Just keep it as much as they possibly can. And the only thing they've done here is just add a stone mound where 220 people are buried. But other than that, it's perfect. And looking at that, this feels like Dances with Wolves again, John Dunbar over the field, it's like being in the movies. So I spent most of the day yesterday in Yellowstone Park. Actually, it was quite smoky for most of it. There's huge uncontained forest fires ongoing all throughout, the southwestern and western United States. It's on account of it's one of the driest summers in, well, they always say this every year, but in living memory. But in the evening, you can see the haze of sun over the sunshine. The sun, instead of kind of going down yellow, it's going down red, and it's just because of all the smoke in the atmosphere. But it doesn't really take away from it. It just means there isn't quite so much to see. You can see there's a heap of buffalo. There's a herd which is running about, I don't know, maybe there's 1,000 in it or something like that. I haven't a clue. It could be just bluffing, but at least 2 miles down the road now, there's a strung out procession of buffalo, and they just walk right up onto the road. And it's grand if you're in a car. They're not going to bother you too much. The worst thing that's going to happen is they'll dent the car. But if you're on a bike, there's plenty to be worried about. But it's not that they're tame or anything like that. I think it's just they just don't care. They've been walking this way for as long as they have been, and they're just going to get up on the road and walk out there. They don't care. They don't care. And why should they? They're an ancient animal to these lands, you know what I mean? They've been here for thousands and thousands of years, and their attitude is, I was here before you, pal. You can go fuck yourself. Quite right. This is Yellowstone Park. It's one of the few places in North America where you can see all the thermal energy coming up from the earth and causing all these geysers. You can see them over my shoulder there. But the one thing is, it's one of the only places in the world where you can get away with doing a fart at any moment, because the whole place smells of farts. There's a couple of reasons why people go to Yellowstone. I think primarily it's because it's one of the few places in the world where you can see North American buffalo still roaming the plain. And then on top of that, it's got a huge range of incredible thermal features throughout the park. And then just on top of that, it's just a beautiful place to spend some time. It looks different than everywhere else. And like most parks or like most locations, if you get the weather, it's an incredible place. I kind of got an overcast day. There was an awful lot of smoke in the atmosphere from forest fires, but it was still beautiful. And it's still a place I'd get back to. It's a fairly frosty morning, and I'm just after leaving the town of Cook City, and I'm headed for Red Lodge over the Beartooth Highway. Just behind me there, hidden in the forest fire smoke, is Beartooth Mountain, and this is the Beartooth Highway. It's between Montana, well, it kind of crisscrosses between Montana and Wyoming. The mornings, doesn't matter where you are, if you're close to the Rockies or mountains or anything like this, it's fucking freezing first thing in the morning, but then it'll heat up and get, you know, much nicer. There's some places you go and they just take your breath away, you know, and this is one of them. You keep riding and riding and you just can't believe it keeps getting better and better. You know, the Glacier National Park is one, that Road to the Sun Highway, the Icefield Parkway up in Banff and Jasper. You know, there's a bunch more of them, but Beartooth Highway here, it's just one of these. You're there kind of, oh well, that must be it. It must be done now. Sure, there couldn't be any more of it. Like, there couldn't be any more of it. And no matter how far you go on it, you keep seeing it. And the whole way along, it's just bikes, 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 which is fantastic, you know, because it makes you feel as well as part of a clique. No, it's not a clique, but part of a kind of a group. That this is where, you know, everybody who's into the same shit you're into is converging on this place. Now, the only thing I'd say is that within bikers, there's a couple of different phylums, for the want of a better word, but you've Harley riders, adventure riders, sports bike riders, and it's amazing how you would think most people who just like bikes are just into bikes and bikers, period. But then there's a lot of subdivision that starts to go on with the, well, I'm into bikes, but I'm into Harleys, and I kind of really only hang around Harley drivers, and I'm an adventure sports tourer person, and I only hang around with those type, and I'm into racing bikes, and you know, I only hang around with guys who race bikes and stuff like that, which is a kind of a pity, because bikes are a small enough genre without it getting subdivided further, you know. That road down there, that's a couple of the twists and bends that you take when you're on your way up the mountain. But I suppose, you know, just by definition that you're going up and down a mountain, you got to go round and round and round and round and up and down. I've never seen anything like the amount of bikes on the road. And this is a Monday. You know, you can imagine what it'd be like on a weekend. People would probably hit here for the weekend. There'd be just thousands of bikes. But every now and then you just see a massive procession of bikes booting by you. The only problem is I'm on the bike the whole time. But it's the sort of thing that I'm filming this as I'm going, and it's kind of, I suppose, in some ways, as I'm riding along, I don't know whether to shoot it, you know, take the video of it and get off and take a picture, or just ride it and enjoy it. So I hope you realise that you're impeding my enjoyment of this by having to film it. Just kidding. The vast majority of people who are cutting south from Alaska heading to Argentina always make their way here. Well, primarily because it's close to Yellowstone Park, but mostly because it has one of the greatest roads anywhere in the world. So Red Lodge is a nice place. I suppose its proximity to Yellowstone Park and also to the Beartooth Highway makes it a bit of a mecca for bikers, but the average hotel or motel in the place costs about 130 to 150 bucks. So at those sorts of prices, bikers aren't going to be long going elsewhere, you know. But it's still worth a look. It's still worth a shot. It's still very good, and it's a nice place. Hear the birdies tweeting. Tweet, tweet. It is just, this place is wall to wall bikers. Bikerville, USA. See that? Freemasons. Saw these boys up in Banff as well. A big deal in the New World, I suppose, with all the construction that had to be done. You know, all these societies, for the want of a better word, were all very much in vogue. And there's that, look at the lodge over here, the fucking gentleman's lodge. They're all with the dodgy handshakes. As long as they're only shaking their hands as you. There's a fairly famous meeting place in Dublin called the Five Lamps. Check it out. Five Lamps. Where are you, boys? We thought we would meet you in the Five Lamps. Where are you, boys? It's amazing. I'm from Dublin and I have no clue why it should be that the sight of bales of hay in a field should have such a tremendous impact on me. But every time I see them, I feel like I have to pull over and take a look and take a picture of them. Now, in this instance, there's hay bales in a field which are rolling up into the Rockies. So there's a very, you know, this is just a beautiful place. But for some reason, a field full of hay bales just out here. I just love it. I don't know, is it because when I grew up in Clondalkin initially, way back in, I suppose, 1974, 1975, it was surrounded by fields, and we used to go and kick the shite out of the hay bales on the farmers. I'd say they hated us. Actually, Clondalkin, which is where I'm from, means Dulkin's meadow in English. So my guess is it's probably had more than its fair share of hay bales, so it's probably in the water. At least that's my excuse. I mean, riding around Montana, it's very easy to fill up on imagery, you know, where you can kind of, by 4 o'clock in the evening, because you've seen so many mountains and this sort of stuff and rivers, you can easily just go, nah, I'm going to bed, and just ignore stuff that you see, because you start to think to yourself, I'm just full. I don't have any more space in my brain for beautiful things to see. What I really need now is 2 beers and to watch a bit of TV. I know that might sound sacrilegious and all that, but you know, there's only so much of this gorgeous stuff you can take in before you start to go fruit bat. You know, it's just beautiful.